Hello, everyone. Welcome to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD. And today we are going to be going over chapter 1023 of One Piece. And boy, am I excited. We get so many reveals, so much exposition. You guys know how I feel about exposition. And we get fights, which, let's be honest, everyone loves. But that's not why we watch One Piece. It's clearly not a story about the fights. If you're someone who's into fights or like what I like to call fight porn, anime, and stuff like that, where you just get super dope fights all the time, that's cool and whatnot. But One Piece is so much bigger and better than that, and that's what I love about this series. So, before we get into that, if this is your first time in this channel, I would really greatly appreciate if you would like and subscribe. Do me a favor, bang that bell. It would mean so much to me as a upcoming content creator. Please join my League of Otaku. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into this review. So, chapter 1023, he's in a pod. And first of all, before we get into that, we have a really cool, at least the the website I went to has a really cool cover spread of all these various characters. Super dope. The one thing that caught my eye the most is I forget, Perona, I believe her name is, has an umbrella that kind of looks like Who's Who. So I'm wondering if that's Oda kind of giving us some kind of allusion to there being some kind of relationship or connection between those two. The cover page, pretty simple. I feel like every cover page is going to be kind of unsatisfying after the Frankie one. And to be real with you, I feel like Oda should have just went ahead and made that a cover story. But I think it was just he was trying to honor the fact that it was originally a request, and he decided to just twist that request and make it relevant to the plot. But in this cover page, we have Vivi with some sparrows resting on her, and Karoo being super jealous about that. So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it might have some clue as to what happened to her during the reverie. We don't know. So that's just something to look forward to. Anyway, excuse me, guys. My allergies are acting up, so I might get a little wonky during this review. Anyway, the chapter starts off with our homies Zoro and Sanji facing off against two of the calamities, King and Queen. And so they talk about, how their calamities, you have the drought, the plague, the wildfire, and, the way that Oda has it highlighted, bolded, it really makes you think that there's something deeper to that term than we realize. At first I thought it was just, for hype and it's their titles, their epithets. So nothing to think about, but I'm going to spend some time trying to think about maybe some other like behind the scenes, some other secret allusions that Oda might be making in terms of those names. Because obviously I don't know much about Jack being the drought, but Plague, who makes all these viruses, and then King, who can create fire. Those seem pretty point blank self-explanatory, right? So anyway, they're about to fight, and you have the rest of the Beast Pirates trying to interfere. My boy Kawamatsu comes in with the whoosh, get the out of here slash, and then you have Hyogoro basically telling the rest of the Straw Hat Pirate Alliance and all of the samurai and all of them, and we got to protect them. So basically Oda's letting us know that they're going to be able to 2v2 fight without interference. I'm wondering how much of this will be a 2v2 as opposed to individual 1v1s. And what I mean by that is I clearly think Sanji is going to fight Queen, and I clearly think that Zoro is going to fight King, but I don't know if it's going to be a capacity where it's just straight up 1v1, or there's going to be moments where they're protecting each other, where they might send attacks at another person. You see a part where Zoro blocks an attack from King that's about to hit Sanji, and then Sanji blocks an attack from Queen that's about to hit Zoro. So I'm wondering if stuff is going to be like that. So something interesting that does happen is Chopper does mention, okay, cool, the medicine did work, but he's anxious to see what happens afterwards. And that's what I'm anxious about too. Like I said in my last review, I really need there to be stakes here. I really need there to be ramifications to his actions. We've seen time and time again where things kind of happen to Zoro, but he gets over it. The nothing happened moment was extremely cool, but once again, nothing really happened of it other than he was indisposed. And I really do think that the at bare minimum, the worst that's going to happen is there's going to be a moment where Zoro is indisposed because he is completely injured, and someone in the Straw Hat crew or maybe the people of Onigashima or whatever are going to have to step up to protect him, and it's going to raise the stakes because one of the greatest fighters that the Straw Hats have, that the Alliance has, is going to be out of commission, right? So that's going to be very interesting. Unless, of course, nah, we're gonna stick with that. Maybe Marco can interfere, but or Law can interfere, but I think it's just going to be such a drastic injury that it's not gonna matter. Anyway, the most important thing though that I really wanted to talk about was the fact that Sanji is saying that his body feels weird, right? That his body is feeling weird, and you know I said this in one of my earlier videos, and this would have been a great moment to have a community where someone could be like, "Oh my God, you said this in video whatever." Because for the life of me, I don't remember what video. I would have liked to gone back and like clip it. But yes, ever since the reveal of the Germa 66 and how they were augmented and blah blah blah, I have always, always, always felt as though his fire powers are somehow related to his augmentation, right? Now, yes, out of all of his siblings, Sanji is like a human. He didn't get the enhanced durability they have, and like any of the other special stuff they had. But I was like, okay, this like you know this fire ability clearly is more than meets the eye. Oda was trolling with the whole passion thing, and you could say it wasn't trolling because maybe he's just giving it from Sanji's perspective, because Sanji truly clearly believes that it's because his passion burns, you know, passionately or whatever. I forget the exact quote, but clearly that never made any sense to us, and we just kind of went along with it. So I'm very glad that Queen is calling him out on that and being like, bruh, that clearly makes no sense. It's obviously a result of, you being a part of the German 66. And with this whole his body feels weird thing, I'm super curious as to where that's going to lead. I'm hoping, basically, long story short, we are going to get basically a buff for Zanji. I don't think he's gonna all of a sudden, become, Germa like durability. That would make me upset, but maybe his firepower will increase. Maybe he can do a lot more with his Diablo Jambe than he's previously been doing. So I'm very happy, very excited to see that. And part of me thinks that it's because of the raid suit. Well, he mentions, it's not that I think, he literally mentions that after utilizing the raid suit, his body has felt weird. So maybe it's been activating whatever latent abilities he has. So I'm very, very curious about that. That's going to be something I cannot wait to go into. I can't wait for this fight because Queen seems to be a blabbermouth. So during this entire fight, I'm just expecting tons and loads of exposition about the Germa 66 as well as King's race and potentially Zoro's identity. But I don't think Queen is going to be the one to give us that information, unfortunately. Speaking of Queen being a blabbermouth, something we learn in this chapter that's insane is finally the race of King's race and their Lunaria. And basically, you can get from the term of the name Lunaria, lunar, loon. Did I say loon? I meant moon, but lunar. So we know that the Bjerkins were all originally from the moon, correct? But for whatever reason, King seems to be different. He has black wings. So what my theory about this is how you have dawn and then you have dusk, you have the day king, you have the night king, and Nekomamushi and Inuarashi. So maybe there's a day and a night on the moon or something along those lines. Maybe that the Bjerkins from the moon fled the moon because of the Lunaria or something along those lines. Who knows? But basically, Marco is spacing out and having flashbacks of the time where he was listening to Whitebeard drunk and stuff, and Whitebeard's telling him about a race of people that lived on top of the Grand Line, and we only know that to be the Celestials, but according to him, it was originally these Lunaria, right? And they were actually referred to as gods, right? And so I think the whole point of this is throughout the entirety of One Piece, we have seen numerous people, time and time again, refer to themselves as gods, right? Self-imposed gods. And so what I'm starting to really think with this whole gods things, and D and the the people who carry the will of D being God's natural enemy, I literally think all that Oda is saying is throughout time, there are going to be people that continually put themselves on the pedestal of gods, continually just make themselves gods, right? And it is the role of the King of D to keep those people in check because, there is no quote unquote God. It's just people trying to convince you that, it's people trying to take control the masses by convincing you that hey, we're gods, therefore you need to listen to us, you need to obey us because that's the nature of a god, to be served and worshiped and obeyed, right? To live above the rest. And so I'm thinking that either one or two things, the world government didn't like the fact that there were people calling themselves gods, that they wished to be gods, they felt like gods, right? And so they put themselves on that pedestal. Or something that I learned watching Tekken 101's video is what if anyone who controls that area of the world controls the entire world? Because as we know it, the red line is the only actual continent on the entire planet of One Piece. Everything is all these islands, right? But um the red line is actually a whole piece of land that encircles the entirety of the world, and there's only limited entrances. And so from a geographical strategic standpoint, anyone that can lay claim to that spot can run the world because they're anti-siege, they have the high ground, it would be hard to take over, so they have a massive strategic advantage by being there. So maybe it's just constantly a war for this one spot. Sorry, my camera cut. So let's just head straight to the Zoro fight. So it's Zoro versus King, and they clash immediately. And then it turns out that King himself also has a Katakuri blade, which once again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm waiting for us to get information on these Katakuri blades, who makes them, what they're made of. Once again, broken record. I think it's liquor iron ore, liquor iron ore, liquor iron ore. I'm waiting for that to be relevant because we know that the revolutionaries were looking for that because they're used to create great weapons. And it makes sense that this would be one of those weapons. And it just seems like so many members of Kaido's crew have these blades. Also, Oda immediately gets rid of this idea we have that King is a swordsman. No, he specifically states that like I don't understand why people stick to traditional forms and techniques in a fight. And so I kind of get where he's coming from because I'm a martial artist myself. I'm a third degree black belt in Taekwondo, and at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if I'm in a fight between life or death, yes, I'm going to use Taekwondo, but I'm not strictly going to use Taekwondo. And I love what Zoro says here because he's always wanted to be the greatest swordsman of all time, the number one greatest swordsman. But for the sake of Luffy's dream, he tells him, like, look, yeah, I'm a swordsman. Yeah, I'm going to try to beat you with my swords. And, like, yeah, you never claimed to be a swordsman. But just to let you know, like, when it comes down to it, to make Luffy's dream come true, I'm going to be willing to bite you in the fucking throat. And that went super hard. And I was super hyped for that. And that's just his way of saying, I'm going to win by any means necessary. Because I think back in the day, if Zoro couldn't win based on his swordsmanship alone, he might, he might just stick to it. But I just like the fact that, hey, with or without his swords, he's gonna do his best. He's gonna give you the work. So that was super dope. I really like the part where Kawamatsu was talking about how Zoro resembles Shumatsuki Ushimaru, I believe his name is. And Ushimaru is the direct descendant of Ryuma, and Zoro was the one that brought Shishui back to Wano. So they're saying it's fate. So honestly, I'm gonna be real with you. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Prior to the Wano arc, a lot of us thought that this was gonna be Zoro's arc. This was gonna be his background arc. We finally got like background and expositional Zoro, and we never got that for the longest time. And I'm not gonna front with you. A lot of us, including me, we were super disappointed by that. I really thought this was gonna be like the Zoro arc, like what Whole Cake was for Sanji and the Germa. This was gonna be for Zoro and the Shimotsuki. But no, that wasn't the case. But we're finally getting that information, and I'm super excited. And we're gonna get some background on him that we desperately need, because it's one thing to know who his parents are. Oh, cool. He came from, the former daimyo of Wano, but we don't know what else. We don't know how he ended up where he ended up, and like why he was sent there. So here's some like, Spark Notes theories I have. Well, first, let me start off. My one friend believes that he was sent into the future as well. But for whatever reason, for some separate reason, he didn't have to go 20 years like the rest of them. He went like, I don't know, 10 or something. I'm not good with timelines, but for whatever reason, they sent him a little bit closer in the future than the rest of the scabbards and whatnot. So that's a good theory right there. My personal opinion is because of how Orochi and Kaido took over. Basically, they did a Clark Kent Superman situation where they're like, we need to send our son away so that he can survive, and we don't want him to come back. We don't want him to come back because if he comes back, all that awaits for him here is death. We're gonna send him away so he can live a good life. And so I believe, we do know that there is a memory altering devil fruit, and there are possibly other forms of devil fruit that can possibly alter the mind. So my theory is that not only do they send him away, they might have altered his memory. And here's something really interesting. I think that the whole Zoro gets lost all the time gag is intentional. I think that they sent him away and they wanted to ensure that he would never return to Shimotsuki. He would never return to Wano. So whatever devil fruit they used or whatever ability they used, like, we have people like Django that can do hypnotism. So possibly someone might have hypnotized or used a devil fruit on Zoro and completely ruin his sense of direction, so that if he ever tried to return to Wano, that he would be unable to. And the reason I think that someone erased his memory is because I don't think Zoro is aware, has any inclination that he's from Wano or ever knew of his parents. All we're ever told in the very beginning is that he just wandered from village to village, fighting and fighting and challenging people and beating adults. And I always thought that it was kind of cool and kind of weird that he was beating adults, but we kind of just chalked it up to, okay, he's a prodigy. He's just the cool ass dude, that he's just the badass. But it would make sense that if he was the descendant of the child of the daimyo, the child of just the child of the daimyo in general. He's gonna have sword training, growing up, just like Odin would train Momo and like Zoro was training Momo. He probably had his father or his father's retainers training him, so he had much better skills than the average person. And then once he met up with Kuina and them, he met someone who had also been training from childhood that was very proficient with the sword. I just think it's very, very interesting that as someone that is a Shimotsuki, he ended up on Shimotsuki Island and or village, I mean. And I wonder if that's intentional, and I wonder if he was already on that island where the village is, or he ended up on the island where the village is. So a lot of questions, a lot of things that we don't know. I'm super excited. It's because now that Oda has, finally presented the question, it means he's going to answer it. And I believe he's going to answer it in the next coming chapters. So the One Piece community is in for a wild ride in terms of this. Anyway, the rest of the chapter is pretty, clean cut and simple. We cut over to all the other fights happening. Next up, we have Inuarashi versus Jack. He is giving him the work. He grabs him by the trunk, flips him out into the center of the building. I said this way earlier, but when Zoro made the hole in the roof, I was saying that now the moonlight is going to be able to fall down as long as the clouds are no longer blocking it. And so Inuarashi goes into Sulong form and just gives Jack the ever loving work. Something I was curious about is he has been raising a lot of death flags and saying that he's willing to die for this. And we had a flashback of when he was lying about Raizo being there and how he would be willing to cut his stomach, commit seppuku. And I wonder if, how extreme he is about keeping his word, and maybe the fact that he did lie and did say that if Raizo was here, I would cut my throat. He plans to at the end of this honor his words and cut his throat. I personally think that would be stupid, but I'm very curious as to why they showed that specific flashback, because there were many times that they said he wasn't there and many lines used. So I was curious about that. So after Inarashi, we go to Nekamushi, who's fighting Pero Sparrow, and he is giving him the ever loving work. And he tells Pedro to look down on them, because you have to remember during the whole point of the Fire Festival is that the spirits of the ancestors are watching down, looking down. So he tells Pedro, look down, I'm getting vengeance for you. And he is just cleaning Pero Sparrow's clock. So as of right now, the allies, the Straw Hat Alliance, is putting in massive, massive, massive amounts of work, and I could not be any happier. And then after that, we have Luffy standing in front of a giant dragon. Now we have Law's pirates, the Heart Pirates, super confused and telling him to get away, prepare to attack. But Luffy immediately recognizes it as Momo. So it looks like off panel Shinobu used the fruit to age him to about the age of 28, and she makes a reference to the fact that he looks a lot like someone. We're just gonna kind of have to assume that was Odin, right? Duh. I'm gonna be real with you. I was kind of sad because I was hoping that it wouldn't happen. I was hoping that this was gonna be Oda pulling our leg and then deciding, yeah, I don't want to go this route with it. And then him getting a lecture about like why aging prematurely isn't the move, yada yada, blah blah blah. But looks like nah, it's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna lie, Momo looks intimidating as hell. His dragon looks huge as hell. I wonder if we're gonna see a influx of power from him in terms of his control with the flight, him being able to utilize his clouds a lot better. So this makes me wonder if the only reason he couldn't properly use his devil fruit wasn't because it was, a failure or a devil fruit. It was because, he was too small to manifest its power properly. And if he was just too nervous all the time, and now that he has, self-confidence and some, age and weight behind him, if those things are going to change. Also, I wonder how strong he is, because you have to remember he was training under Zoro the whole trip to Wano, and I'm sure that Kinemon was teaching him some things prior to that as well. And so I wonder if the aging process, if it just went, okay, well, based upon the training he had been doing every day, if we just extrapolate that information and assume he maintained that training in during this aging process, what he would look like now. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. So yeah, man, we have a lot of drops, a lot of exposition. We have, Sanji being possibly being more German 66 than he thought. We have Zoro having interconnected history um with Wano. We have Momo aging up, and now we have Luffy possibly getting to the rooftop in a handful of chapters. Yamato is still up there, so I wonder how she's faring for herself. So we have so much going on, and I'm super hyped. I'm super hyped. We still have to figure out what's gonna happen with Big Mom. Kid and Law are fighting. Speaking of Kid, we have Killer fighting Basil Hawkins, and I wanted to mention this in the last review, and I never got around to it. But in terms of how they're gonna defeat him, I'm super confused. I have two theories. One, he can maybe cut off the arm of the voodoo doll, and the reason I say cut off the arm is because Kid already lost his arm. So I'm wondering if if that'll use up the voodoo doll, if that would normally be a wound that would cause it to be, spent. Also in terms of that, another thing is I was wondering is if the person being attacked is stronger than the person with the voodoo doll, will they survive? So for example, if Killer uses an attack on Basil that he knows Killer can survive, but may be lethal to Basil, will that in turn, yes, greatly injure Killer, but get rid of the render the voodoo doll that Basil Hawkins is using null and void, right? So a lot of stuff going on. I'm gonna leave the review here for now. There's a lot more I want to speculate about, but my camera's not doing too well. It keeps dying out on me. And like I said, my allergies are acting up, so I feel kind of nasally. So I'm going to leave it here for now. And if I have any other thoughts that I really want to get out, I'm going to release a follow-up video. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Take care. Have a great day. Please like, share, and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Join my League of Otaku. Anyway, this has been Otaku Talk. I'm your host, OD. Take care. Have a great day.